Unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time. So this is kind of what I imagine happens if you're a person that wants to get into the government and clean it up. You know, this is just my imagination. All right, join me, if you will, in my dark fantasy. Kash Patel, let's just, for the sake of this little scenario, let's say he's a legitimate guy, or Dan Bongino. I doubt they are legitimate guys, but let's just say they are. Let's say they're good dudes that really do want to clean things up. They've seen things from the inside. They don't like it. And they want to clean things up. So they go through the process. They make all the friends. They get appointed. But then they go into the belly of the beast. Kash Patel's suddenly the new boss. He spent the better part of a year calling everybody in the FBI and CIA and calling them all criminals and saying, day one, going to find these people and arrest them. Day one, you know? Dan Bongino saying the same kind of stuff. By the way, I never really liked either one of those guys, you know. And the reason why whenever I'd see a Dan Bongino interview or something, I'd go, this doesn't feel real to me. It felt like, to me, it felt like FBI shit. There's a certain type of character that Sean guy that has a CIA, you know, there's a certain phenotype. They have cop vibes, and you know, I have cop friends, kind of. You know, I got a nephew that's kind of cop vibes, and here's the thing: is you can never trust them, and the reason why is because they've been sworn to secrecy, and anybody who will take a vow of secrecy can't be trusted because they have agreed to, whatever terms are, they've agreed to say, I will not tell the truth about this amount of things. And if a person allows that contract to be placed in front of them and they sign it and they say, okay, I take an oath to not say these things, that person has demonstrated to a group of people and to everybody else that the truth is not important to them. You know, telling the truth is not important to them. Rather, membership in this club is more important to them. So they're serving the club. And you can't trust any club. I'm sorry, but every club is corrupt in some way. So anybody that swears an oath to keep a secret is automatically totally suspect, you know? So these guys are already part of that club. Dan Bongino, what was he in? Secret Service or something? Kash Patel was already in the FBI. So you already know that they're a certain type. It's the same kind of guys that will join a fraternity. I never joined a fraternity. I would never allow myself to be hazed in anything. The only time I ever allowed myself to be in a secret club was when I was a Mormon, and it was kind of a surprise. It's like, surprise, you know. There's this thing where you go through the temple, and going through, the Mormons consider the temple to be a sacred, not secret, but sacred place. And when you go in, when I went in, we had to go through a bunch of mimes and all this other shit. The temple ceremony is a bunch of things where, when I went through, I know they've changed it now, or I've been told, but we had to mime out slashing our own throats and disemboweling ourselves, that this what will happen if we tell anybody these secrets of God and any of these secret covenants and these secret poems and codes and stuff like that. Apparently a lot of it's just stolen from Freemasonry. But so, you know, ancient stuff, these secret groups and secret codes, it's nothing new. Mormons didn't invent it. Skull and Bones, same kind of shit. But that one was sprung on me. Like, they didn't tell me before I went into the temple that I'd be doing those things. They didn't say once you get in there, you're going to mime killing yourself, slitting your own throat and disemboweling yourself for dispelling the secrets. In other words, right now, me dispelling the secret, I, according to that vow, should and would be visited by a slashing of my throat and a disemboweling of myself, you know? So, you know, is it credible? Did I find it credible back then? No. I saw it as being mostly symbolic, but that's not a good symbol to have in your head. But anyway, so these secret clubs, I went on my Mormon mission. Took me a couple years after my Mormon mission to go, I don't want to have anything to do with any of that stuff anymore. I'm tired of the secrets bullshit. And that's really what, if it comes down to anything, why I left the Mormon church, it was probably mostly based on dishonesty. The thing that I found most alluring about the things I learned from that were attributed to Jesus Christ were honesty and the standards, the 10 Commandments. Those are the hits. Those all kind of work for me. Do the best you can to tell the truth, and that doesn't mean I do tell the truth all the time. Of course, I've lied lots in my life and embellished and shoplifted and haven't been straight with certain people. Blah blah blah. I'm not claiming to be perfect or anything, as if you thought that I was claiming that. But yeah, the secret stuff. Now, of course, I'm not worried about having my throat slashed by some Mormon missionaries or disemboweled, because first of all, the Mormon church has updated a lot since the old days. Plus, I don't think they ever really did. I hear that way back in the olden days, maybe they did do some of that stuff. Maybe they did. A few people were disappeared that started going out and engaging in blasphemy or apostasy or whatever. But yeah, it was mostly a symbolic thing. I never had the fear of it. But I don't think Mossad works the same way. I don't think the CIA works the same way. I don't think certain actual skull and bones clubs work the same way. Like, again, even in frat clubs, I hear all these stories about frat club things where, people have to humiliate themselves in order to be hazed in. You have to humiliate yourself in a way where everybody has dirt on their fellow man or something. That's the essence of the Epstein thing and the Diddy thing, is that, let's get people in compromising situations, film them doing it, and then essentially you have this thing hanging over their head. Well, you promised, or, I have videotapes of you sleeping with this underage person, or fucked up saying this, or whatever, I've got leverage over you now. And all those secret things, that's the thing, is getting leverage over you. And it's one thing to do a symbolic thing or be in a frat and do some humiliating thing like hold an egg up your ass or a frozen hot dog between your legs, and humiliate yourself in a way. But it's another thing to have, there's different levels, If you're a Freemason and you do this, you get kicked out. Like, I didn't get kicked out of the church, but essentially when I left the church, I was sort of cut off from the culture. A lot of friends wouldn't talk to me anymore. My mom disowned me, essentially. I had a part in that because when I left, I was bitter and I was really kind of abusive to people who stayed back. Like, how could you still believe in that shit and blah, blah, blah. I can't, So I had a role in all that stuff too. But it really is set up to cut people off. You hear that with the Church of Scientology. They make life really difficult for you if you turn your back on it. Mine wasn't so bad, but kind of, kind of. I lost a lot of good friends. A lot of people turned their backs on me. I wasn't allowed to speak at my mother's funeral. My mother conspired to keep me away from her funeral. It's just crazy, weird shit, these secret societies. If you break the secret, if you break the covenant, and you're on the outs, you know. But yeah, advance that to the CIA and the FBI, and you're supposedly on the inside, and you went to all the parties, and you took all the oaths, and you swore, and then you don't like it, then you're a whistleblower, and suddenly you run on being a reformist. And here's what I think happens. I think you're Kash Patel or Dan Bongino, and you report to the office your first day, and somebody greets you, and they say, we have some briefings for you, pass the torch kind of shit. And the message starts getting pretty clear that we don't like your kind around here, or don't rock the boat, Or maybe it's kind of chill. Maybe, people are, not being super blatant about it. But I think at a certain point, here's what I think happens. And how Trump showed that picture of the guy's house, the Iranian guy's house, the Afghanistani guy's house, and said, don't do anything stupid. Here's a picture of your house. That's what I think happens. That's what I think happens. I kind of went through this little mental scenario. I imagined a dark scenario when Trump got shot, because when the Republican National Convention came along 2 days later, he seemed like he was in a dark place. He just get shot in the head. But he seemed, in my mind, of course, I had this story, so confirmation bias or whatever, but I ran this story in my mind where he got shot in the head, they rushed him into that limo, and then in the limo ride from there to the hospital, this is what I imagined, there was a conversation that was like, all right, so you see who's in charge now, Trump? You see? Your life belongs to us, because we're the ones that are supposed to protect you. And you see what just happened here? So I kept seeing that all through the RNC. Maybe I'll have to rewatch it, but when I was watching it, I was seeing that in his eyes. I was seeing a man who was threatened. The story that I wrote in my mind was a guy where they said, you think we're going to stop here? You got lucky. You're alive because we let you live right now. But here's a picture of Mar-a-Lago. Here's a picture of your grandkids. You see, this is a picture of Kai Trump. She's your beautiful granddaughter, the golfer. Here's a picture of her bed from inside her house. This is a story I told myself, and he seemed really sullen and dark. The RNC, he looked like a captured man to me, and I said as much. I don't know if any of that's true. It's funny because any situation you can get used to. You can acclimatize to some pretty fucking hot water, the boiling frogs thing. But imagine if you're Dan Bongino or Kash Patel or Pam Bondi. You're like, we're going to release the files this first day. Oh, okay. Everybody's all hot and bothered about it. They really believe that that's exactly what they're going to do. And they're asking, and they're, give me the files, give me the files. Okay, well, actually, come here. Here's a file you should look at. Open a file, and it's a picture of your daughter's bedroom from the inside. It's a picture of your bed. There are pictures of all your loved ones from inside the room. Maybe in the file as a personal item of your daughters, or your sons, or your grandmothers, your moms, or your wives, or your Scott Bessent's case, his boyfriend, or whatever. Anyway, I get it. I'm not letting my imagination run away from me, but I'm sure you could see that this is plausible. When you've got so much to lose, when you've got these bankers and these drug cartels and the amount of money and the people that are involved in these operations and the drug smuggling, the gun smuggling, and the operations here and there, and everybody within those organizations, remember, you got to remember, all of these people are sworn into the Brotherhood. Sure, you can say, oh, they swore to uphold the Constitution. Who gives a shit? They actually swear to the Brotherhood. You saw what happened. You saw William Barr. You saw what William Barr did. William Barr let the election get stolen. He didn't do anything. He sat back and we all thought, oh, William Barr, he's going to be a good guy. He was back from the good old days. It's like, no, no, no. You see Boasberg. You see how, they're in the same fraternities with John Roberts. These people, and let's say, they literally are skull and bones. They literally are part of secret organizations. The Bushes were part of the skull and bones too. And that's the whole point of these fraternities, is to create networks of people that, with their secret handshakes, literal secret handshakes. I know a bunch of secret handshakes. I shook secret handshakes with people. I still think it's kind of fun to do. I haven't done it for a long time because I forgot about it, but I think it's fun to sometimes do that with other ex-Mormons, is to give them one of the secret handshakes from the temple, which you're never supposed to do. Yet that's the whole purpose of the secret handshake, is to say to somebody, I'm part of this group. I'm part of this network. You know how many people are in it. You know what our philosophies are. You know what the oaths are. You know what our goals are. I'm here. I'm watching you. That old joke. Why do you always take two Mormons fishing with you? If you only take one, he'll drink all your beer. You got the two, they're keeping an eye on each other. That's why Mormons like to hang out together. That's why Skull and Bones people like to hang out together, to keep tracks on each other. These brotherhoods, and all the different versions of them. You can list them from, no big deal, kind of fun, Proud Boys, to holy shit, Skull and Bones, to holy motherfucking shit, Mossad and CIA. KGB. What's the British one? I-5 or something? Whatever the fuck that is. I can't remember. But, yeah, it just... I don't think they do that immediately. I don't think they give you the file, the picture of your daughter's bed immediately. And I don't even think they do it in person. I think it shows up somewhere. I think you find it. You find it on a Signal chat or a Telegram chat. And you don't know where it comes from. I don't think Agent Jackson hands it to you. I don't think there's a shadowy figure that can be identified that says, with a cigar, ha ha ha, let me show you something, Kash Patel. I don't think it's like that. I think it's more like you find it. Imagine just going home. Imagine going to your house, and you walk into your room and things aren't the way they were. And you find evidence is incontrovertible that somebody's been there. Imagine that happened to you right now in your house. Hell, this happened to me. Think of this. Just a couple weeks ago, I went and did my shopping, and I came home, and I went to get my computer, my laptop, that I had left on my bed, and it wasn't there. It wasn't there. And I was like, holy shit. And I left my sliding glass door for my deck open. Granted, we're 3 stories up. But somebody could have come up a back stairs or whatever. And my blood went cold, and it was like the laptop was gone. I thought, oh shit. somebody stole my laptop. But I looked around the room and other things weren't stolen, I thought, what the fuck? Where'd it go? I went and grabbed my phone. I went to my cameras. I started looking. My blood kind of went cold. It's that feeling that somebody had been in your private place, when you weren't there and they took something of yours. It's just, there's this feeling, It's not panic. But all the hairs, not literally, I wouldn't say the hairs go up on my neck, but there's this blood running cold kind of feeling, where it's just like, oh shit, somebody's been here. Long story short on that one, it turned out that I had slid my computer underneath my pillow. So it was there, But that feeling, another time I had this feeling is back in my partying days in San Francisco. I'm just sleeping in my bed and I woke up and there's this woman standing over me and I just went, whoa. When you wake up at 4:00 in the morning, it was just some drunk woman that I was friends with, and she was friends with the girl upstairs, but she just came in my apartment because I didn't lock the front door, and she just walked into my room, and who knows how long she was standing there looking at me sleeping, But man, that feeling of looking up out of a dead sleep and seeing somebody in your house, what a fucking feeling. But imagine that feeling being used on somebody. I don't care how tough of a guy you are. You might be the toughest person in the whole world, but if you think somebody's going to kill your child or your loved one, or even you, let's just, let's not pretend that, bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's the response to fear. It's how you carry yourself in the face of danger, in the face of fear, But can you blame a person who's talking a big game? Oh yeah, we're going to go in there, we're going to tough some things up. But then all of a sudden, when you're digging around, you get that message. Somebody's been in your house. It's so brazen. It's so brazen. But you don't think there are dark people within the U.S. government that wouldn't do something simple like that? You think they're just gonna, I posted this thing today about how preposterous it is. I see all these people saying, oh, Pam Bondi's a turncoat, Dan Bongino, these guys are all turncoats and they're useless. And I'm like, okay. It sure can seem that a human being is useless against a huge, dark organization, because in a way they kind of are. Can you imagine Donald Trump having the nerve to just go, hey, whatever, mafia crime family in New Jersey, here's Becky Taylor. She is now the boss of this crime family. And you think the crime family's going to go, oh, okay, Becky, you're our new boss. We're going to answer to you because you've been appointed our new boss from Arizona. Mormon lady from Arizona. Oh, you're our new crime boss? That's to me what is like putting Kash Patel or Dan Bongino or Pam Bondi or any of these people at the heads of these organizations. Sure, they can try to do stuff, but when they're the crime family has to accept your leadership. And do you think we're anywhere close to a situation where the FBI, the 90% of the people that are in the FBI are lefties from Washington, D.C., who have sworn to secrecy? CIA people sworn. These people believe that government secrets are a moral thing. Some of you probably believe this. But let me tell you something, they're not. All these vows to secrecy, they're not moral, they're immoral. And once somebody enters into that, gets tricked into it, and a lot of us have been tricked into it. We've been weaned on this idea that Oh, we got to have a safety. The government has to keep secrets, otherwise we're doomed. That's bullshit. You know? These people keeping secrets from us, it's not good. It's not good. It's not for your own good. Ever. You know? They aren't protecting you from you. They aren't protecting you from foreign enemies. They're protecting themselves from you. That's what those secrets are. To protect themselves from you. And I'm sorry, but the idea that you're just going to turn these huge crime families. I mean, come on. I don't know the names of the Italian crime families, but you don't change one of those overnight. You know, you can fizzle it out with through generations or whatever. But they're small in comparison to the CIA, or the I-5 intelligence agencies, Mossad. You know, let's not even think, you know, these threats are coming from within the FBI. We could say, for all we know, and it kind of seems like it seems like our agencies have been captured by Israel for a long time. You know, it seems like most of the people in the government have, in one way or another, sworn some sort of allegiance to Israel. That's the only thing that can explain it. All these non-Jewish people doing the work of Israel, how do you explain it? Other than getting the coded messages. And they come in many forms, you know, many different layers, many different levels. Some of them are small. They probably start out small. Hey, do this or we won't, you know, contribute to your campaign. Or, you know, they can buy your influence. They can just influence it at first with charm. Start easy. Just go with friendship, you know. But then you advance. You see how it happened with Kanye, you know. Don't say anything against us because then we'll punish you. But that's just, you know, take away your kids. I mean, we see what they're willing to do. And that's the public face of the Talmud and the chosen tribe. But the Mossad level, the clandestine military exploding pagers, you know, secret apps that take all your messages from Signal, you know, that level. I just think it's dumb to assume that people in these powerful positions that claim to want to change it aren't under incredible pressure of life and limb to do what they want to do. I saw a little bit of that interview where Kash Patel and Dan Bongino both were like, they asked him about Epstein. They just both, you know, they were all gung-ho. All of them, they were both gung-ho that something's wrong. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Here we are a couple months in. They've been kind of quiet. But in this video, to me, they both look like a couple of scared puppies. You know, when they said, oh no, he killed himself. And they just went straight into that. I saw the evidence. Oh, really? Explain the evidence. Well, I can't do it. Come on. Something changed your mind. I want to know what it is. I have a right to know what it is. You're not explaining it. They're not explaining what they saw. You know? And there's just no way I'm going to buy it. Cameras go off. You know, two guys go napping. Yeah, okay. And Epstein killed himself. I mean, he could have. But the chances of all those things lining up are so low. And when you see a couple guys that kind of look like they're shitting their pants being interviewed, I'll be honest, Bartinomo, saying, oh, no, we saw it. Can't tell you what it was, what we saw, but we saw it. I'm convinced now. I'm thinking what you saw is a note on your child's pillow or on your pillow. What you saw was a brazen display of evil power saying, stop fucking with us. You're one little guy. Becky, you're not the boss of the crime family now. I know Trump said you are, but you're not. You know, that's what the message says. Nobody says that. You just get that message when you come home and there's a picture of your puppy or your daughter. You get the message. And am I going to, come on, put yourself in that position. Can you really say, well, that's all the more reason. That's going to fire you up. Come on, think about it. You lay back after something like that happens, you lose some nights of sleep, and then, so now you're on sleep deprivation, and now when you walk into the office the next day, who left it there? Who's part of it? Who's watching you? Every look that you get from somebody looking up from their thing, was it him? Was it him? Was it him? Who's the one that took the picture of my daughter's bedroom? Who did it? You got little sleep, but suddenly your blood's running cold. You know, you can feel it in your dick. I don't know, man. I just, Trump seems to be a different kind of guy. You know, who knows why? All that shit that happened to him, he seems to have been able to power through. Like a few days after that assassination attempt, that look went out of his face to me. And I can even tell a story that those things did happen on that day, but he found a resolve and he said, you know what? Fuck it. A bullet grazed my ear. It should have blown my head off and it didn't. I no longer give a fuck. I'm doing it. I'm going for broke. I'm protected. You kind of get this feeling that he has that feeling about himself. Rightfully so. You can't fault a guy who's escaped assassination attempts a couple times. Yeah, and of course this could be just a phony movie. You know, I don't think it is. I try not to deny a reality. I don't want to get totally swept away in fantasy, but I try not to deny reality too much either. But that's what I'm seeing. You know, these people have, and even Trump. I mean, by the way, even Trump, when he decided to take the oath of office, I don't know. I don't think there's a sworn to secrecy thing there, but look, I didn't swear myself to secrecy voluntarily with the Mormon Church. You know, they made me slash my own throat with my thumb and disembowel myself. As a young kid, 18 years old, you know, doing this oath. You know, and then all the other social pressures to stick around or be cut off. Outer darkness. They literally call it that. If you apostatize, you'll go to outer darkness. No access to family or friends. And that's the mild shit. That's the local church. When you get into the Freemasons and the Skull and Bones and the CIA and Mossad and KGB, that shit gets dark. I don't think it's going to get solved in 4 years, let alone 4 months. I don't see some magical victory over evil. It could be. But I don't see it in Dan Bongino's face. And I certainly as fuck don't see it in Kash Patel's face. And I don't see it in Pam Bondi's face. And I'm not saying that any of these people are bad. They might be just complete props. That's the other option. You know, they could all be a bunch of phonies. And I was thinking about this. I know this is getting long, but I was thinking about this, and on the one hand, I think Trump's kind of a genius because he's appointing Janine Pirro, Pam Bondi, people that have been in the public eye. Dan Bongino, podcasters. He's elevating people that are already known. That makes sense to me because it's coming from his realm of entertainment. Why? It seems like a transparent move, right? It's just like, why should I appoint somebody that nobody knows? The transparent way would be like, no, I'm going to appoint Dr. Oz, fucking just people that everybody's already familiar with. That causes problems because most people would prefer, I think, a secret guy that they don't know. I think that's most of the reason why Hollywood hates Trump is because they know him and they know themselves and they don't like themselves and they don't trust themselves. So they're like, I don't want a guy that's in my business doing that. I think that's the reason why these queens in San Francisco don't like Trump. I kept trying to tell him, I said, dude, he's a fucking drag queen. Trump, his orange makeup and his hairspray, he's a fucking drag queen, okay? He's an entertainer. Beauty pageants, hotels, golf courses, game shows. He's an entertainer. So when he's picking all these people that are from that industry, I think that seems like a total accountability move. That's like, we already know these people. We know that a lot of people go, oh, they're incompetent. They're just Hollywood people. So what? This assumption that a person you don't know is automatically somehow smarter than you, that's stupid too. That some bonehead guy with a long pedigree, and a long resume in the government is somehow more qualified. It's like, yeah, he's more qualified to be part of the swamp, but you don't know anything about him. Appointing the celebrity seems like a smart move. Having said that, it's also the way you would do it if this was a long build-up and a long con. Getting all these people in the positions. It's harder for me to believe in that kind of thing, though, too, because there's just too many ways for things to fuck up. I think life is mostly, the way it seems to be. If you're looking close enough, people are just the little meat bags that they are. And that's the other point that I want to make is Kash, Bondi, Trump even. All these people are just they're just like you. They're just not exactly like you. Obviously, you don't have the same kind of ambitions. You're not trying to govern anybody or overthrow the people that are trying to govern. You're just doing your thing, But they're still meat and bones. They still fart. They still stink. They still have heartbreak. They still worry. They still have sleepless nights, Very easy to compromise them, to scare them, to put the fear of God in them or the fear of Satan in them, whatever fear you want to choose, So I don't know. I don't know what I'm asking for here. Certainly, I wouldn't ask anybody to get their hopes up. I think hope is a thing that you create, It's not something that just comes through somebody else. If you think some one person is going to change all this shit, I think you're setting yourself up for major disappointment. I see so many conservatives right now. Bondi's a phony, blah, Kash is useless, and and I'm like, yeah, you don't really know the pressures they're under, and I'd like to see you do it. You haven't even put yourself out there, and I don't even think you don't need to. I'm not saying you need to, but it's really easy to puff up your chest and pretend like you wouldn't be scared shitless if you had credible threats that somebody wanted to kill you and your loved ones or your loved ones and had the total capability to do so. That's the thing. Are threats credible? Let me tell you something. When the FBI is threatening you, when the CIA is threatening you, when Mossad is threatening you, when Qatar is threatening you, when the Bank of London is threatening you, when Hillary Clinton is threatening you, those are credible fucking threats. And I ain't going to judge you if you decide on day 3 of your quest to change everything that you don't really want to do it anymore. You know? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I try to cut slack. You gotta cut slack. And I think really the only answer to this stuff is just to live your own life as honestly as you possibly can. Find the joy and the beauty of nature, you know, the thrill of this whole exciting thing, you know, get ready for whatever comes. You know, get excited for what really needs to happen. What really needs to happen is mass non-compliance for the next big thing. What's the next thing? Is it COVID, turning in your guns, whatever the next, turn over your property, UN troops coming in. Who knows? There's going to be something big. Something big is coming. It's because that's just always, there's something big coming. Somebody's always going to be trying to do one over on humanity. So you can either dread it, you know, or you can sort of get pumped up for it. Like, okay, God, nature, whatever you want to call yourself, what adventure are you going to throw my way? Because, God damn it, I'm not going to dread it. I'm going to fucking relish it. I'm going to enjoy it. Bring on the challenge. Anyway, easier said than done, right? Thanks for listening. Unnecessary outro song to totally waste more